If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Get ready to dive deep into one of the most gripping legal battles of our time. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and today we're unraveling the high-stakes drama surrounding one of the music industry's most enigmatic figures, Sean Diddy Combs. In a case that has captivated millions, the courtroom has become a battleground for fame, fortune, and the dark secrets that lurk beneath the glittering surface of celebrity life. As the gavel comes down, we'll explore the allegations, the testimonies, and the shocking twists that could change the course of Diddy's legacy forever. Was this case merely a clash of lifestyles or something much more sinister? With each episode, I will bring you exclusive insights, analysis, and witness testimony accounts that will leave you on the edge of your seat. So buckle up as we embark on this thrilling ride through the trial of the century, where the stakes are high, the drama is real, and the truth is anything but certain. This is the trial of Sean Combs. Let's get started. Welcome back, and a quick catch up before we get into today's episode on Monday, June 9th's testimony. Now, Jane testified for the third day in a row by this point. And if you'll remember, I told you about Jane telling jurors that Diddy forced her to participate in these hotel nights with male escorts that she said made her feel debased. She went on to say, "You treat me like an animal," to Diddy in text messages. Jane also described violent abuse, saying he once put her in a chokehold and punched her in the head. He then forced her to take drugs and perform oral sex on an escort. Jane also texted Diddy she didn't want to be used and locked in a room to perform and fulfill your fantasies. The same day, she told him she didn't want to fly to New York to be a, quote, hoe for the millionth time. Jane also said she felt obliged to perform sex acts that made her feel disgusting, in part because Diddy paid her rent. She said she fainted after Cassie filed a lawsuit and accused Diddy of rape and sexual abuse during a 10-year on and off relationship. Jane said she was struck by the similarities between their two accounts. Quote, "I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma." She texted Diddy in 2023. Now, Jane also described a suicidal ideation she had at the end of her relationship with Diddy, adding that she told him she would kill herself. In text messages, she said she believed he would use and break her. When prosecutor Comey asked her why she sent those texts, Jane cried so hard it was difficult to understand her answer. In late 2023, Diddy threatened to release sex tapes of Jane and show them to her child's father, she testified. Jane texted Diddy's then chief of staff, Christina Korm, and begged her to talk some sense into him. Korm assured Jane he's not going to do anything. Now, if you remember from yesterday's episode, I told you about the fact that the defense had moved at the beginning of that day, at the beginning of Monday, for a mistrial. And the reasoning for that was they were saying that Brianna Bungalan's testimony was just total bullshit, basically. And the judge said, okay, I'll rule on it Tuesday morning, which he did rule on it this morning. And he ruled against declaring a mistrial. So with that, Jane is back on the stand, and Teeny Geragos, the defense attorney, begins her cross-examination. And Geragos asked Jane if she regretted a lot of the choices she made throughout her relationship with Sean Combs. And Jane responded, quote, I resent him for leading me to the lifestyle he led me to. Geragos then suggested that Jane chose to participate in that lifestyle, to which Jane responded, quote, my choices were made under a lot of emotional pressure. Jane went on to say she was hooked from the beginning of their relationship, but she didn't understand, quote, the terms and conditions of what our relationship would be like. She said she resented the way that Sean Combs went about introducing her to the lifestyle that she termed was built under a lot of emotional manipulation and pressure, but she did say she still loved him. Defense attorney Geragos then took Jane through the routine after a hotel night, and Jane said she's very naturally nurturing and she loved to take care of Combs after the hotel nights would take place. She went on to say she'd give him foot massages, feed him, bathe him. She put on his favorite show, which incidentally was Dateline, and they'd watch it until he fell asleep. How about that? Sean Combs is a true crime fan. Now he's living his own Dateline episode. Jane testified she endured the hotel nights to have together time afterward. She said that she didn't want Sean Combs to feel judged during the hotel nights because it was a vulnerable moment. Quote, I feel that my partner was trusting me in this very vulnerable moment, and well, he made me feel like this was something really special. This was special and something only he and I did, and I really took that on very strongly. Jane said that she believed that while they were together, she was the only woman Combs was having hotel nights with. She said she would go through messages on his phone to make sure, and she testified that she left at the time because we experienced these type of things together and because they were really special to him. And she added, quote, and as time went on, it was very conflicting for me internally because I'm breaking all of my own boundaries just to make him feel extremely loved. Geragos then suggested that Jane chose to take ecstasy during a hotel night because it would make her feel uninhibited and allow her to play into Sean Combs' fantasies for several hours. And Jane responded, my choice to take ecstasy, I would say Mr. Combs would offer it and he would expect me to take it. Geragos then dug into the sexual encounters themselves a little more, and Jane provided more insight on that. She said that with or without entertainers, there was role play involved with Combs. She said during a hotel night, Combs would often direct her to play into a cheating fantasy with the entertainer. She said, quote, Sean left town and I'm home alone with me and whomever I'm sneaking in. This entertainer, it's just me and the entertainer fantasy talking about Sean is on a plane, and I couldn't wait to get this entertainer all alone. When asked, Jane did confirm that Combs was aroused by giving directions to her as an entertainer during a hotel night. Geragos returned to some of the times that Jane and Sean Combs would get into arguments and stop talking, and Jane testified, quote, "We would get back because we missed each other." Geragos then asked, "So you would get back together with him on your own volition?" And Jane responded, "Yes." Geragos then asked Jane to talk about some of the things that she loved about Sean Combs. And Jane said that Combs beamed a very bright light when she met him and said, quote, "I was fascinated by him." Jane also testified that Combs, who she said was very motivating and encouraging, helped her be less shy and more confident. Quote, "He would uplift me." Jane also confirmed that Combs supported her dress and swimwear fashion lines. She said he invested about $20,000 in her dress line. She confirmed that Diddy sent her money throughout the relationship, and most of the time she didn't even have to ask for it. Geragos asked if the total amount Combs wired her was more than $150,000, and she said, quote, "I never really counted, but I would assume, yeah, that will be close." Jane said when she met Combs in 2020, she was making money from Instagram influencing and also received about $4,700 a month in child support. She said once she was with Combs, she couldn't devote time to influencing and felt like she only met 10% of her earning potential during that relationship. Jane testified that when she moved into the new home in April of 2023, she thought that, quote, "If we got a home that was to Diddy's taste level, then we could just start at least doing hotel nights here in the privacy of our home." She confirmed that her and Combs did not want anything about the hotel nights to leak. She confirmed that it was important that the public didn't know anything about the hotel nights and that Combs' employees didn't know anything about the entertainers. Geragos asked if they had done any hotel nights at Jane's previous apartment, and she confirmed they had. Geragos showed the jury text messages and audio messages between Jane and Diddy from March of 2023, right after the Turks and Caicos trip that I told you about. She previously testified that during that trip, Combs sprung an entertainer in a hotel night on her, and that prompted an argument that threw things off between them for days. The two then traded loving text messages and voice messages about how much fun they had. In Combs' voice note, he said he loved her. And that was played for the jury. Combs also mentioned Jane's contract on an audio recording, which Jane testified was a reference to the love contract that they had brokered that I've told you about. Remember, it was $10,000 a month that he was going to pay, which all went towards her house note in that contract. The jury heard an upbeat recorded response Jane sent Combs, telling him that she had so much fun on the trip and loved him and felt closer to him. She said on the recording, quote, "Everything just feels good, and I'm so happy." Jane testified that she did have fun with Combs and was expressing that she loved the time with him, excluding the time they spent with entertainers. Jane confirmed that when she moved into her rented home in April of 2023, Diddy paid $40,000 up front to cover the security deposit. He also paid the rent for the first and the last month. Defense attorney Geragos pointed out that the landlord already possessed several months of rent payments in case Combs ever decided to stop paying the rent. And the attorney suggested Combs indicated that he was also open to paying 3 more months of Jane's rent when they were about to break up. And I told you about that testimony from yesterday. Geragos asked Jane if she believed Combs would stop paying her rent. Jane responded, quote, "There were some times that I definitely felt that he would do that, and he used it as kind of a little tool. The rent was always just a little reminder of his power." Then Geragos went into describing a time when Jane still was getting to know Diddy. Asked her about that, and Jane testified she was with him in Miami before he bought her a pair of shoes. A Bottega Veneta bag and a bracelet, and I probably just jacked up the name of that bag. Hey, I don't buy bags, y'all. Apparently it's expensive though, and during that trip, he explained to her that he led a polyamorous dating lifestyle, which means you have many partners and you're not committed to just one partner. Jane said that she didn't mind at first because they were getting to know each other, but it became more difficult once she began to develop deeper feelings for Combs. Quote, I was feeling my man and wanted him to be mine. Jane also said she felt there was an imbalance in the treatment she got from Combs in comparison to how he treated his other girlfriends. She said it became difficult for her when Sean Combs started spending time with young Miami about 6 months to a year after they began dating. Combs and young Miami had a very public relationship that appeared to be monogamous, and they would post on each other's social media. But Jane said her relationship with Combs was very private. She's being legit on that. I actually thought Jane was young Miami until I really dug into this a couple of days ago and discovered she was not. Jane was quoted as saying, it was definitely not something that I signed up for. I didn't sign up to date a man that was in a public relationship. She testified that on their first trip to Turks and Caicos, Jane suggested Diddy go to a rehab center in Thailand when she realized how the drugs he was taking were affecting him. On the flight to Turks and Caicos, she noticed he had shaky hands, eyes, teeth, and his coloring seemed to be off. She said, I could tell he wasn't taking very good care of himself. Gergos suggested that Jane knew he was a drug addict from early on. Quote, in the beginning, I didn't really know how to label it. I encountered somebody who was overdoing the partying. Jane then added, quote, as our relationship continued, I noticed a very strong pattern, and I still didn't really even label it as a drug addict. I think now I would say that, but then I would just say he was a really big party guy. Toward the end of their relationship, Jane learned Combs was taking antidepressants, she said. She confirmed that she wanted to get him off drugs and back to his natural form, and she testified that Combs had once told her he was interested in getting ketamine therapy.
Jim, did you see what happened in Texas today?
Wait, before you tell me that, let me tell you what happened in New York.
It cannot be as crazy as the case I told you about yesterday in Louisiana.
You know what? We should do a podcast about it.
And with that, we did. Crime Wire Weekly covers the crime news headlines that have dominated the week.
We cover trending crimes from all over the country and even sprinkle in a few globally.
Crime Wire Weekly is available now wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Simply by searching Crime Wire Weekly or clicking the link in the description of this podcast. Gergos then suggested that Jane told prosecutors that she enjoyed just about every minute with Combs during those hotel nights. And Jane responded, during hotel nights, the portion of me and him, yes, I loved that part. She testified that they would have some alone time for about 30 minutes to an hour before the entertainer came and after the entertainer left, and that she enjoyed when the two of them would make love. Jane also confirmed that Combs gave her the attention and affection that she wanted during hotel nights. Quote, he's the most affectionate during these nights, adding that he wasn't generally that affectionate. Jane confirmed that red lights and baby oil, they were not exclusively used for hotel nights. Combs used them in his private residence for their other sexual encounters as well. And Jane also confirmed that she was okay with the hotel nights being filmed and that Sean Combs told her the videos were just for the two of them. Quote, you put on a good show for him in these videos because you knew he would watch them back, Gergos asked her. And Jane responded, yes. Gergos suggested that Jane liked watching the videos back with Combs, but Jane said she just accepted it. Quote, I did not like that part, but it was just a part of the relationship. Jane confirmed there were a few occasions when Diddy ended a hotel night early when she vocalized that she wanted to stop. And she testified there were a few rare occasions when Combs agreed to dismiss an entertainer when she wasn't attracted to or comfortable with them, but only after she tried to have sexual interactions with the men for a period of time. Defense attorney Gergos tried to suggest that Combs readily agreed to dismiss the men when she wasn't comfortable, but Jane did push back on that. She said she had to endure sexual interactions with the men first. So Geragos then revisited 2 occasions in which Jane had testified that she cried after a hotel night. She testified that on one occasion at the beginning of her relationship with Diddy, she cried when Combs was going to leave her soon after a hotel night, and I told you about that when the prosecution asked her about it. So when the defense asked, Jane confirmed that when she had Combs stay with her to comfort her, he rearranged his plans so he could. She also talked about another occasion toward the middle of the relationship where she cried in the shower with Combs after a hotel night, and Geragos asked Jane to confirm that Combs was high on ecstasy at the time. Jane confirmed that and said he was too high to see her cry and told her, "You're going to ruin my high." I mean, that ain't even funny, but what an asshole to say that when a woman's sitting there crying in front of you. Geragos read messages between Jane and Christina Coram around the time that Combs asked Jane to bring the drugs to Miami for him, and Jane previously testified yesterday that she spoke to Coram on the phone, and Coram told her it was fine and instructed Jane to put the drugs in her checked luggage. The messages were read aloud, but they did not include Coram saying that. But Jane maintained that she spoke on the phone with Coram about it. Geragos asked if Coram would fly on Combs' private plane when she traveled with him, and Jane said she assumed so, but she wasn't sure about that. Jane also testified that she and Coram were not close, and she said Coram did not like her. Jane said that her dynamic with Coram was hard on her relationship with Combs because the employee was always with Combs. I mean, Christina Coram was his chief of staff. You got to be tight to be someone's chief of staff. Quote, "I believe that she had very strong opinions about me, which influenced a great deal of how Sean treated me." Geragos then asked Jane about her interaction with certain entertainers who would be used during these hotel nights with Combs, and about which ones she liked and reached out to during the encounters. Jane confirmed she found one handsome, and she also had good chemistry with another. Geragos returned to Jane's testimony about how they got involved with another adult performer called Sly. Now, Jane testified that she and Combs were watching Sly's pornographic videos one night before she reached out to him. Geragos asked Jane if she went on her own social media account to look up Sly's profile, and Jane said, "Yeah, I did that with the encouragement of my partner." Geragos asked if it was Jane's idea to privately message him, and Jane responded, quote, "Given the context of what was happening in my relationship, yes." Geragos then asked if Combs asked her to reach out to Sly or if he was encouraging it, and Jane said, quote, "He was encouraging." Geragos then read aloud some of Jane's text messages. This was from around Halloween of 2021. Jane texted Combs that she wanted to see him, and Combs responded that he had a rough day and wanted her to lead tonight, quote unquote. Jane responded they should freshen up, have a drink, and see where the night takes them. And Combs said he didn't feel like being around people. Now, on the stand, Jane confirmed they had a hotel night in those messages. The next day, Jane texted the adult performer, Sly, and she asked for explicit videos. Jane testified that she was with Combs at the time and he was asking her to reach out to Sly on those videos. A few days after that, Jane texted Sly about coming to visit and said, quote, "I'll organize." And Jane testified she was with Combs at that time and they were trying to figure out when they would see Sly. And Geragos showed the jury more text, these from November of 2021, between Diddy and Jane planning to see each other. In the messages, Combs told Jane to be explicit, prompting her to send explicit messages about sex acts with Combs and an entertainer. Geragos and Jane read some of the text messages aloud in the courtroom, and Jane testified she spoke in graphic sexual language, knowing that's what Combs wanted. After exchanging a series of what she termed fantasy messages about the entertainers, Combs asked Jane what she wanted to do. She wrote that she wanted to spend time with her favorite person, meaning Combs, and Combs then asked Jane if she wanted him to stop by with an entertainer. Jane testified she said yes to the sexual encounter with the entertainer at her home because it was the only way to see Combs. Quote, "That was the only option I was given. I wanted to see my lover." The jury then saw more messages between Combs and Jane in which Combs asked her, quote, "You can't handle no mo." Jane testified that Combs was trying to encourage her to have sex with someone else. Quote, "The undertone of this is, I can't handle it anymore," kind of teasing or taunting me to have one of these nights. And Jane confirmed that she and Combs had a hotel night after these messages. The jury then heard messages that Sean Combs and Jane exchanged on November 22nd of 2021 when they were discussing seeing each other. Combs said she could set something up and said, "The last vision we had involved two of the entertainers. They frequently used Don and Sly." Jane sent back a voice message saying that she thought he wanted him to save the situation as a grand finale once he finished his album. She testified that she was trying to make excuses to get out of this thing because he's encouraging me to set it up. Jane testified that after these audio messages, she saw on social media that Combs was spending time with another woman. That led into a text conversation that prosecutors brought up on direct yesterday. Quote, "I thought on a quick 1 to 2 day trip, you would just want to see me, but wanted a Don and Sly moment within that time. Hotel vibes," Jane sent in one of the later messages. The jury saw text messages that had been shown on direct examination. Messages in which Jane expressed frustration that Combs is pressuring her for a hotel night, but is with another woman who's posting their quality time on her social media. In one text, Jane references that Combs bought the other woman a Chanel bag. And then kind of a tense exchange with defense attorney Teeny Garagos. Jane said she didn't garner much from the relationship. It bothered her that the other woman got nice gifts and excursions from Combs, who she said didn't give her the same treatment even when she gave into sex with strangers. So Garagos reminded Jane at this point that Combs gifted her a Van Cleef necklace and that Bottega Veneta bag, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that again. Jane confirmed he did and then quipped at Garagos, "I'm sure you have one." Garagos then asked, "How much do those bags run?" And Jane shot back, quote, "How much does my body cost?" And it was at this point the judge is sensing all this tension and he cautions Jane to just answer the questions as asked. When Garagos asked again how much that bag cost, Jane said they range from $1,500 to $5,000. And when asked, Jane said she didn't know how much a Chanel bag cost. Jane testified that the home she lives in now is 5,300 square feet, which is significantly bigger than the 1,400 square foot apartment she used to live in. And Jane said that she profited a little bit off a business that Sean Combs invested $20,000 into, and she confirmed that Combs never asked her for a portion of the proceeds. Garagos then pointed to Jane's businesses and asked her about her previous testimony that she wasn't able to do anything during the year she was in the relationship with Combs. Quote, "Had I not dove headstrong on this relationship, I probably would have been a bit more successful in that time frame. But that's neither here nor there," Jane said. Garagos reviewed more sexually explicit text messages from 2021 in which Jane appeared to engage positively with Sean Combs about hotel nights and watching footage together from past hotel nights. Jane said she would offer to watch footage from these sexual encounters because Combs liked to recap after a hotel night. In other messages that the jury saw, Combs told Jane they could be alone without an entertainer and didn't have to do Molly. Jane responded that she would believe it when she saw it. She also wrote at the time that she knows Combs likes hotel nights, and she said she didn't mind them. That's an issue. Jane testified she was positively reinforcing Combs about the hotel night so Combs felt comfortable and didn't feel rejected. And with that, time ran out for this day in court and the jury was dismissed. And I'll be back with you soon with the next update. I want to say this before we get out of here for all the fathers out there listening from one father to another. happy Father's Day. It's Father's Day this weekend. Look, if you like what you hear, check us out on Patreon. Commercial-free early release episodes, bonus episodes, quarterly gifts for our top-tier Patreon members. We could not do this without these people. They stick with me through thick and thin. I love them to death. Please check us out, patreon.com/exposed podcast files. And don't forget, Crime Wire Weekly is on its own channel right now. That's a podcast I do with Unspeakables. Kelly Jennings, award-winning podcaster. We cover the preceding week of true crime headlines that are trending all over the internet and give our sometimes serious, sometimes comical comments on that. It's a really good show, and you can check out the link in this description. Go follow it, and it'll alert you as those episodes drop. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.